My daughter is nearly 17 now, and it's only last year so that I've kind of started to leave her home alone, if you like, for maybe overnight.
I reckon I was left at home from around the age of 11 years old.
My eldest was probably 13 or 14.
I would say possibly that they were at to be in secondary school.
Parents always wonder what is the legal age to leave a child home alone, but there actually isn't a legal age. So it's a bit of a grey area in the law, but the reason for that is because if you choose an age, it's not just about the number, it's really much more about the child's maturity.
If they're mature enough and you can trust them enough to sort of stay there at that time, you'll know, wouldn't you?
My middle one now, who's 13 going on 14, I wouldn't leave on his own because he's not as mature as my older daughter.
I think a general rule of thumb is the sort of age where children transfer from primary to secondary school, so around 11, 12, they're going to have more independence anyway. You know, very often they have to go to school on their own, very often they come back at the end of the day and maybe no one's there for an hour or so. So that's the kind of age you would think maybe they can stay home alone for a little while.
It gives you independence, which then I think gives you more respect for your parents. Definitely did me, like, because I was independent from that age, if not younger, so that's probably why they let me do stuff on my own.
You know, you can say to your child, would you feel happy if I go out for an hour, and, you know, what would you do if the doorbell went, and that kind of thing. I think it's important to have that conversation, not just assume, you know, that children will be happy with it. How do they answer the phone? What do they do if the doorbell rings? You know, have you told them not to answer the door? All those things can really scare children if they happen and they're not prepared. And also, what do you do in an emergency? You know, if the house catches fire or something, you know, you have to go through all these things with a child.
If it makes them more responsible and they know they've got to be in charge of things, you know, they're probably less likely to want to get into trouble by doing something stupid and spoiling it, because then you're not going to leave them again, are you? Make
sure your child has a mobile number where they can contact you, or a neighbour that, you know, you've told, I'm out for the next hour or two, they can pop round to, or have the phone number of. Just put, you know, everything in place and pin them up on the fridge, and, you know, make absolutely sure none of that's left to chance. Most over 16s are going to be mature and, you know, sensible enough, but still make sure you check out that they, you know, can cope, and you should always take up references. You should always look carefully, you know, at talk to them about how they would deal with a challenging situation, like a discipline thing. You know, what do they think is naughty and how would they deal with it, that kind of thing. Make sure they're on the same wavelength, you know, as you with parenting. Parents are still responsible in the law for their children if they leave them with under 16s. You are responsible, not the person you're leaving. So that 14-year-old babysitter is not legally responsible for your child, you are.
I have an older brother who's 5 years older than me. He was 12 at the time and I was 4. That's when my mum first trusted me and my brother to be alone at home.
Sometimes parents think, oh, well, I've got a couple of children and the older one can look after the younger. But you have to be careful with that, because siblings can resent that, and they really might not feel ready for that responsibility. You know, you think, oh, this 14-year-old can look after my 9-year-old, but they might be thinking, oh, I really don't want to do this. So it's having those conversations, making sure your child is happy, and if they're really not, you know, try and get some arrangements in place.